everyone, I'm Tally, this is Farrell and we are bored of it, and welcome to our review of MLEM. MLEM is for 2 to 5 players and it's a fun little game involving some dice chucking, and it's got some push your luck, and you're going to be using those mechanisms to go as far into space as you possibly can.
Yes, because the theme here is that I think there's only like 60, 50 years in the future. Humanity's gone, they're out the way, cats are in charge, and now they have a space program. So each turn you're going to launch a rocket into space, and as Tally said, you're pushing your luck to get it as far as you can go while trying to get some points along the way. Now, before we get into it, please note that we were provided this as a review copy from Asmodee Nordics. On your turn in MLEM, Space Agency, you're going to be the captain. So you pick one of your astronauts, each of which has a unique power that will help or hinder somehow, and you'll put it on this rocket. And then in turn order, every other player will send one of their astronauts to the rocket, and then you'll launch. And essentially what you're kind of trying to do is to get as far up this track as possible with the rocket using dice, because the further you go, the higher the points you get. But what you do is, as a captain, you'll roll the dice. And what I've rolled is 5 2s and a 1. And the space where the rocket is pre-printed with what dice you can use. So here I could use an asteroid symbol, which is in place of a 6. Or I could use a 1 or a 2. So I could use any of these dice to move, and you move as many as pips there are on the dice you're using. But the trick is, I can't use some of these, I have to use the entire group of a number. So I can move 1, or I can move 10, or I can move 11 by using it all, but that's it. So let's just say I use all of these, I go to 10, and these go out now. For this round, they're done, they're spent. So I only have 1 dice remaining. I don't like those odds, so now as the captain, first choice is I've got somewhere with a planet or a moon, and I can decide to get off the shuttle. So I decide to because I only have 1 dice, and then I get off and I get some points because it's a moon. So moons, you score immediately and you just grab the points. The planets are area control, where whoever has the most at the end will get a big amount of points, and then second place will get a smaller amount of points, and then everyone else that's there will get some points. So then whoever is next in turn order, who is still on the shuttle, will decide if they want to get off or if they want to stay on. If they stay on, they become the captain, and everyone else kind of has that choice. So everyone could get off, some people could get off, and whoever's left stays on. And then the next captain will roll, and they rolled a 2. Unfortunately, where they are, you can only move if you roll a 1, a 3, or a 4. And what this means is that the shuttle crashes, it goes back down, their astronauts come back. So they basically, you could say, didn't get any points or put themselves in for any points that round. And this is where the push your luck comes in. That was kind of a bad first roll, for example, of having all of one number, because basically you moved once and all your dice were out. Often it's more about gambling on which ones to use, how much to use, if you want to push it, if you should get off. Oh, and one very important thing in terms of the general gameplay is that every die has an asteroid face on it. And when you roll an asteroid, some spaces will say you can use an asteroid, and their value changes depending on the space. But what's really important and a nice twist is that when you use an asteroid, they do not leave your dice pile. So if you roll 3 asteroids, you can use 3 asteroids, and then you still have 6 dice the next time you go to roll as you keep going up. So these are a core part of how you get to these upper echelons of space. So there's also a few other modules you can put in. You have the kind of secret missions module, I'm going to call it, where you get these little tokens, and they basically give you a specific planet or moon to go to, and the more of these you kind of complete, the more points you get. There's also a UFO module where there's a UFO that starts at the top of the map and it'll move down as you play the game. And if you manage to land on it, it will give you some points, but it will also each round kind of affect gameplay in some way, maybe giving you a special power, maybe removing dice, maybe giving you dice, but at the cost of one you roll, and so on. Finally, there is a kind of exploration module as well, which puts little exploration tiles on the spaces on the board, and if you land on them, you flip it and you get it. So some of them might launch you further up, some of them might just give the captain that lands there points, and some of them might just, help you do stuff with dice, basically. And that's kind of it in a nutshell, and you could say the crux of this is pushing your luck with rolling the dice and getting up the track and when to get off, and watching what other players do, because the captain always has to decide first. But we'll go into what we think and speak about it a little more.
So, what do we think of MLEM? Well, firstly, we think it's a wonderfully silly groupthink where you need to be semi-cooperative because, of course, everyone wants the launch to succeed so you can get off and get some points. That is until you get off the ship and then you want everybody to crash and burn. So it's creating a pretty fun and silly dynamic around the table. We also think the astronaut powers are actually very interesting. You can actually be pretty strategic with them, and they're really elevating the game above a very simple family weight game. I think definitely for me, the more I played MLEM, the more the kind of strategies about how and when you use your astronauts and their different powers was really becoming apparent. So for example, I was really thinking about what astronaut I would send out when certain people were the captain. Maybe if I know that person is in a particularly gambling mood and they really want to push their luck, maybe I'll send out the astronaut that has the parachute, so I at least have a chance of landing on a planet, because I think they're probably going to crash. Or maybe if I know somebody else has put their astronaut in where you get double points if you get all the way up to the top of space, maybe I'll do the same because they're more likely to kind of be maybe sensible about it, or they also want to get to the top. So this is very interesting. We also think that it works surprisingly well at multiple player counts. Of course, the semi-cooperative nature and the kind of fun element that comes from that will always be a little bit more fun with more people. But we also found the game still pretty fun when it was just the two of us playing. So if you're worried about the fact that maybe you would only be able to get this out with 2 players most of the time, then we wouldn't let that put you off, although it is a game that we'd probably still recommend, getting out with more players on the odd occasion to get the most value out of it. For us, we think MLEM is a fun and modern twist on kind of old school family style games. It really understands the kind of joy of chucking the dice and the emotional impact of the result, as well as the addictive nature of trying to push your luck just one more time and go as far into space as possible. Now, whilst we do think it is a fun game, it's not the most exciting game we've ever played. So for us, this is falling into the category of being a filler game.
As Tally touched upon, the core game is extremely solid. It's fun, it's replayable, it's got kind of good table talk going for it. And one thing that's great about this package is that it comes with these little optional modules as well. And they're all welcome additions and ways to just change up and make it even that bit more replayable. So the first one would be these kind of secret missions where you want to go to specific planets to get points. And to be honest, these are something that you probably wouldn't play without if people are familiar with it. There's no reason not to, because it doesn't add any complexity, just another point of decision space. But the one thing I will say is that you kind of are dealt 4 at random and you keep 3. So there is an element of drafting, but you can very much just get 3 tiles that all want you to go, or 4 tiles that all want you to go to higher planets, and then you have to keep 3 of them. Whereas somebody might get, this planet and that planet, and it's far easier to do that and get a lot of points out of it than it is to get all the way up here. So that's one thing that can be a little bit tricky, you could say. Then if you turn to the UFO expansion, this is, I think it's something that's nice to have, and I'd like to play with it occasionally, but it isn't something I would include in every single game, because what it does is it's making some sort of change to the way the round is played each round. So you're going to flip this alien tile and it's going to tell you, you lose 1 dice, but you get a 1 and a 2 printed on it, and then you can flip that tile over to use a 1 and a 2. A kind of, die. So the problem is sometimes they remove 2 die from the starting pool in exchange for what's pre-printed on the tile. And the problem with that is that with the dice themselves, you can re-roll them. And one important factor is that with the asteroids, when you roll an asteroid, it doesn't get used like the rest of the dice. So really what you want to roll are asteroids, because then you're able to keep rolling without losing from your dice pool. And removing 2 and leaving 4 means that your pool is that much smaller to roll an asteroid, which means it's that much less likely to be able to kind of keep going further. And it doesn't balance out having this one-time use of, you know, a 1 and a 2 die that you flip on the tile. So that can be a little bit frustrating when, you know, it's like turn order and then you flip 1 and you only get 4 dice when it's your turn to roll and you end up here and then that's kind of your turn. But then other times, you know, the bonuses on them can let you go all the way up. So it's swings and roundabouts, but it would probably leave some people annoyed at times. And you could also argue that the way the alien moves down, the later you go in turn order, the more likely you are to be able to land on it and get the points from it, as opposed to being first in turn order. This is not perfect. Finally, the exploration module. This is something that, again, I think is fine to throw in. It's interesting, it's good. I don't know how much control you really have over landing on these spaces because, you know, you're kind of limited in what you can do and what you roll. So it's not like you have the most choice about getting exactly on these spaces, but they're kind of a nice little addition, a nice way to get some points or to change the game up and be happy to play with it pretty much every time, to be honest. Final thoughts. MLEM, Space Agency, was a delight to play. It's not perfect. It's got flaws, but I think in a game like this, when you're kind of rolling dice, gambling, having a bit of fun with the people around the table, we might be looking too hard into it. Yeah. Certainly it's a game I want to get out again when you have the right group, when you have family. I really like the kind of tactical gambling element. I like the powers. I like how each round feels different and that you have all the modules to mix in. You know, there's some things that make it imperfect and maybe unfair at times, but hopefully it will all balance out as you play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I also had a lot of fun with this. I think the art is pretty cute and funny with the little cat astronauts. Yeah, exactly. Like we said, for us, this is a kind of fun filler game. So, you know, we don't need to overthink it too much. And if the criteria for this one is fun, then I think it does tick the boxes.
Yeah, I guess the biggest mark against it is that Rhino Kinesia has made far better games.
Yes.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
But it's still an excellent outing and one that we're going to keep and play and enjoy.
Yeah. And if you like cats in space, it's a winner.
Yeah, I mean, if you think Calico hurt your brain, then this is what you really want.
Cats and or space.
Yes. So that was our review of MLEM Space Agency. We appreciate you watching. If you have any questions, please ask them down below. We would really appreciate if you subscribe, if you found it helpful. You can check us out on some socials if you want more bite-sized board of it, like Threads and Instagram. And thanks a lot for watching. See you next time.